Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC, a proud member of the Beautiful Game Network, and brought to you by Roughneck Scarves and Icarus FC. Tonight, we have a really special one for you guys. It is an interview with the boss himself. As you know, I'm your host, Phil Bakke, and it was me, Mikka Burrell, Christian Canales, and Austin Young. We sat down with the boss, talked about everything from the roster moves that have been going on around the club. We talked all of the recent results and kind of just generally how things have gone since the restart of play. And I really hope you guys will enjoy this one. It's always a pleasure to talk to Mark. He's a great interview. And hopefully you enjoy this this sit down with him. If you do, please consider subscribing to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play. It'll also be available on some more platforms soon, so keep an eye out for that. Also, you can follow us on social media at Seriously Loco. Our Twitter is the most active, and a lot of different content in there. And in this one, our Patreon subscribers were able to ask questions to Mark and actually had the inside track that we were going to be doing this interview. So if you want to have access to things like that, please consider becoming a Patreon subscriber, patreon.com/seriouslyloco. So check that out. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. And without further ado, here is our interview with Mark Lowry. Mark, thanks so much for coming on the show.
No problem, Bill. Thank you guys for having me again. I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I guess it's been since, the end of last season that we've had you on the show. Hard to imagine then what would have transpired since then. But how have you been holding up through all this craziness, like, both on and off the field, as we spoke about when you got on the call? Just how have you been, kind of personally dealing with everything that's been going on?
It's been difficult. I think, this is when you realize that, we all have our own jobs and our professions, but at the end of the day, we're all human beings dealing with our own situations at home, trying to get through a pandemic when schools are closed, everything's closed, trying to, figure out a way to get through the day, particularly if you've got kids at home. Like I've got two of them, and when the school's closed, you're doing the online classes, and then the difficulties of juggling that and trying to do your own job, and the frustration of not being able to play, not being able to train after we felt we had a really good preseason, finished preseason really strongly, great result on the road, first game of the season at Orange County, and then you're shutting things down. So it's just been a roller coaster, and it still is, frankly, even though we've got some sort of a season happening right now, the return to play and the regionalized league, the new format and things like that. We've got games, but there's still difficulties throughout the week and challenges that we've never had to face before that can be frustrating at times if you think about it too much and let it get to you. So it's just a juggling act. It's a bit of a roller coaster for everybody. And I imagine everyone's going through their own personal challenges based on your home life and the situations you have at work and things. It's difficult, but we're here. We're playing some soccer. Everyone, as far as I know, is safe and healthy, and we're blessed to be able to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned school, and that definitely hits home for me with my spouse working in schools, and then Christian. I know you're he was working in schools too, so it's definitely a difficult time, I think, for all involved on that front. And you mentioned roller coasters. To lighten the mood slightly, your hometown team, Aston Villa, a roller coaster a little bit, but they survive, they find a way. And how was that, watching that transpire in the Premier League's return?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the Premier League was always going to return. There's just way too much money and just too much involved at that level to not finish a season. There was still so much, resolution that needed to happen, whether it was, Liverpool officially win the league and the Champions League place and promotion relegation, which is just huge over there. I mean, getting into Premier League and staying in the Premier League is probably worth hundreds of millions of dollars at this point. So there had to be some resolution. They found a way to, I got to give them credit and Europe in general credit. The league started back up, no fans, there didn't seem to be much of a problem with positive cases throughout the teams. I remember Watford maybe having one or two really early on. Outside that, I can't remember any teams getting hit with, positive COVID cases. So they found a way to get it done and dramatic end of the season for Villa, and we stayed in it, and that was the whole. I think if you'd have asked any Villa fan, the objective this season was to finish 17th. It sounds crazy, but that's worth the title and all, and to us that's worth everything. Getting to stay in another year, and hopefully, the idea is first, I think, to stay in it, and second year build, right, to establish yourself again as a Premier League team, which for me, throughout my lifetime, Aston Villa, apart from the last couple of years, have always been a Premier League team.
Right.
It's where I think the club belongs, and there wouldn't be many people, if they kind of took bias out of it. There's not many people in England, I think, would say that Villa are a Championship club. I think Villa are a Premier League club, and we managed to stay into it. But now the most important thing is to get better. We cannot. 17th can't be the goal next season. Even if it's 16th, 15th, there has to be some level of development and improvement in year two back in the Premier League. But yeah, staying in it was good. Happy about that. I'm kind of happy the way it all ended. I'm happy that Liverpool won, not just for you, Phil, but I'm obviously a big Klopp fan of the way they play. I'm glad they got that moment. And, Man City in the Champions League right now look good, which I'm excited about because obviously I love Pep. So I'm just happy things seem to be going the right direction over there with regards to football.
It's interesting you mentioned, obviously, the Premier League, kind of the way they handled the return to play, no fans, similar to the way that they did things in Germany and elsewhere across Europe. But Mikka, I think you specifically had a question relating to games without fans.
Yeah, Mark. I mean, I just wanted to know what it's been like playing without the fans, and if there are any pros out of a situation like that. I mean, it seems like it could possibly benefit coaches who want to get their tactical messages across throughout the match, or do you find that that's the case for you, or are the hydration breaks enough for you to do that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. It's an interesting question. First of all, I want to say that I completely support the club's decision on doing things behind closed doors now. And I know some clubs in the league have opened it up. And frankly, they've got a little bit of bad press for it. I know Louisville have had some matches on TV and there's a lot of fans in there, and OKC haven't. From what I've seen on social media and just the response, it can be kind of negative, putting on public events right now when we're really not sure or have this thing under control, obviously. So I got to give our club a lot of respect. Everyone's lost a lot of money this year. Every club has lost a lot of money, not being able to open things up to fans and vendors and things like that. So for the club to kind of stand their ground and do what's right, for people, really do what's right, in general is fantastic. And I applaud the club for that. And I support their decision to, even though selfishly, I'm desperate to have fans in the stadium. I don't enjoy this without the fans, particularly being at home. Obviously, the fans do make a big difference. And I think if I remember rightly, when Germany started back up, Germany were the first league, right, to start back up, the Bundesliga in Europe, start back up without fans. I remember seeing a stat, I think maybe 6-7 weeks into it, and it was like 50% more away teams had won games than what normally happens, because you remove the fan element from the home team and somewhat makes it an even playing field. The energy home fans give you can really spur you on and give you that extra couple of percent. And then ultimately going away from home is tougher when you're going into a hostile situation. So I think it makes it more of a level playing field. And I think you saw that in Germany with those statistics and score lines. People found away teams are picking up more points now without fans. So I think selfishly, I don't enjoy this current format. I think this game or any sport, frankly, is for the fans. Whether it's because you want to be entertained, whether it's because you want something to do on a Saturday night with the family, whether it's because you're a diehard supporter and El Paso Locomotive or whatever team you support is running through your veins. It can be. And I know growing up, Saturday was the day you look forward to all week because you got to go to the game, and your Sunday and Monday was ruined based on the scoreline, or it was actually made even better based on the scoreline. So to take that away from people, and obviously you watch it on TV, and it doesn't take away people's support, but not to be there. I mean, look, this past weekend, 4 goals, a great game for the fan, great spectacle, not to have people there enjoying that with us. Isn't great. So I support the club's decision, but I cannot wait to get back, and hopefully sooner rather than later, even if it's next year, we can get this thing under control and get fans back in the stadium, because it definitely helps us. And it's a huge part of the game that once you take that away, the game loses a little bit of its emotion, a little bit of its excitement, because the fans definitely give that. Yeah,
that's I think like sanitized, I guess, is the way that some of the football feels, just like worldwide right now. But you spoke about kind of the oddness of the season, how the format is obviously different, the structure is different, and the ultimately, there's been some roster turnover as a result, and I wanted to get into just a discussion about these recent moves. So obviously Alexi Bassetti departing earlier this year due to it, family and personal reasons. And then the club recently releasing Fabrice Facobo and Mario Salomis. Yep. Obviously a lot of clubs are facing difficulty, but do you want to kind of give us some insight into those decisions, and we'll kind of go from there?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to, give you honest, the background behind those 3 moves. So I don't think there's anything bad that needs to be said about the players, because, they're all great guys. And Alexi was simply, just a family decision that he made. I mean, Alexi had a great preseason, really bought into what we were trying to do, even though it kind of went against his, as an attacking player, the demands I put on our attackers to defend and run back and press and counter press is a little bit different to most of the coaches. So he kind of, Alexi bought into it though. A complete pro, and worked so hard during preseason, wanted desperately to be successful here. Like he really did. He really showed. And that's why he started the first game of the season, frankly, because he deserved it. He deserved to be in the lineup first game of the season. And I believed he was going to have a really good year. And then his family went back to France for the off season. They didn't come back until March, even though his family were here last year. His wife knew El Paso, that she was here last year for a little bit with him. Mm-hmm. They went back to France, and when the season ended, and Alexi, and this is Alexi. Alexi wanted to come back on his own, and so he could focus on a really good preseason. He just wanted to come back and be fully, 100% focused on getting fit, getting strong, and having a good preseason. So he kept his family in France. And they flew back in March, week before the season started, right? Because, the season started now, they can come and they can enjoy the games. And, he'd achieved what he wanted to achieve in preseason. But obviously a week after they came back was when we kind of shut down. So his daughter's getting into school age. So obviously that closed down. They couldn't socialize. His wife doesn't speak great English, so it's not easy for her anyway to be out and about, but so they really struggled in terms of just being happy here again as a family. And even though Alexi, I think I give Alexi great credit for the decision he made, because Alexi was really enjoying his football. Alexi was really focused on his football and loved being here, but he put his family first. And the quite emotional phone call I had with him was when he called me and kind of laid it all out and was like, "This is the best thing for my wife and daughter." And I was like, Alexi, I fully support that. I'm not gonna stand in the way of that. That's just not the right thing to, even though we wanted him here, and I believe he would have really helped us and been successful because he had the quality and he had the work ethic. We came to an agreement and no drama. He didn't hold us to anything. He didn't demand, full payout. And I don't want to get into details, but I just want to give you a true evaluation of Alexi as the person. He just wanted to do what was right for his family, and we spoke it out. And he came and finished off the last couple of sessions. We had a great, team lunch, the day he left, and that was that. So that was Alexi, really. It was just the right thing for his family, and I believe that always comes first. Even more so this year, when there's all these different challenges off the field that we're all going through as human beings. So that was Alexi. Right. Fabrice just came here. So much talent, real talented player. Never really got used to just the different culture, not just off the field culture, but our on field culture. The way we work as a group was a little bit different than what he's been used to. So it took him once again. He didn't come into preseason truly fit, so he had some catch up to do there. And then obviously the pandemic again started, and Fabrice was a guy that needed as many training sessions with us as possible, if that makes sense, to fully understand how we do things and the chemistry and the identity of our team. And That was taken away from him, with the suspension, and then he kind of went back to square one a little bit fitness-wise. So it was a case of, I'm just not going to be able to get Fabrice up to the level that he's capable of, because once again, immensely talented player. Mm-hmm. That was never the question. But we just don't have the time now. And he's here on his own. It's not like he's got family or friends here. They're all back in Cameroon. So it was like, I think it's in his best interest to, particularly with him having a background in the game in Europe and the transfer market in Europe. And that was another thing for Alexi. The timing for Alexi was purely based on the transfer window in Europe. It's like, I need to go now so I have an opportunity while the transfer window is open in Europe to get a team in France. And it was the same kind of thing with Fabrice. I felt like, keeping him till the end of the season, not really playing him, may do harm to his career. He's going to miss out on a year of football, but also on a transfer window in Europe where he could go back to Portugal and play maybe. Right. So that was done with Fabrice's best interest, and he agreed to it. And once again, completely amicable, no drama, immensely talented player. Just one of those things just didn't quite work out for him, and I wonder how much of that was to do with the pandemic and the suspension, but we'll never know. And we're not going to dwell on that.
Sure.
So that, it's kind of similar to Alexi, but Alexi was more kind of a personal decision to him and his family. I think with Fabrice, we probably looked at the Alexi thing. We're like, it might be in Fabrice's best interest as well.
Sure.
And then Marius is a great guy, really good professional. One of those guys comes in early, stays afterwards, does all of his rehab, does his ice bath, takes care of his body, does extra finishing every day. It was just a style thing with Marius. And this is partly me kind of trying to figure things out this season as well. I'm constantly evolving as a coach and what we're trying to understand. I think this year I've figured it out. And when I say I mean figured out from an attacking standpoint, who we truly want to be as an attacking team. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but
sure.
And as my thoughts and the team's evolution happened, it became more about, and you kind of saw in the first half this against Colorado, that having dynamic players in those areas, players like Aaron, Saeed, Dylan, that are just constantly on the move, lots of combinations through the middle, where Marius is more of a target number 9. So it was not Marius's fault. It was just as we started to work some things out as a team on who we want to be as an attacking, dangerous, aggressive team, it became more clear to me the type of players that I wanted in those positions. And unfortunately, that just became a style fit for Marius. And then having the opportunity for him to go back to North Carolina was something that I felt once again was in his best interest, because once again, the last thing I want this season with a limited amount of games is a guy not playing too much and the effect that might have on his career, right? So putting the person first before the team, putting Marius's, ambitions and his livelihood before myself, before the team, was the right thing to do. Look, I would love Marius to still be here. There's always a place to have another attacking option, right? But Marius needs to play. Marius wants to play. Marius has scored goals before, so he needs to go into a place where I think he's going to be better suited to score goals. And that's what we got done with North Carolina. It's a place where he knows, he's familiar with. He's going to go back there. He's going to He's going to settle quickly because of his familiarity there. So it just made a lot of sense. Maybe it was another club, would have kept him because, it would have been a new start for Maris. I don't see this as a new start for Maris. Like I said, he's going back into an environment that he knows, and he'll settle quickly. And in the short season, it's really important the players settle quickly because you just don't have time to acclimate people or find them minutes on the field like you can do in a 34, 35 game season. We've only got 10 games left. So it's like, right. We've got to get guys time. And if that's the way from here, we'll definitely look at those options for them because it's the right thing for their development and their career.
I really appreciate the honesty and the candid nature of the conversation. Cause obviously there is a lot of room in these moves for kind of the questions to start to come out. But something that struck me about, like, obviously the stylistic thing, and then kind of how you mentioned about Fabrice needing as many training sessions as possible. As a Liverpool fan, I kind of go back to a player like Fabinho, who, took probably 6 months, playing in that system or training in that system before he was trusted to play in it. Does the style of the team make it more difficult or maybe more intensive for players to find their way in the system? Do they need, do players on average, I guess, need more time to adapt to the style?
Absolutely, which is why you need a full preseason, and it's not so much the style. It's, for Liverpool, I'd look at Naby Keita as another example, right? Like a supremely talented midfielder, but has found it hard to break into that midfield. And I think it's more, and I don't want to speak badly on other clubs or other teams' way of doing things. I just feel, and I know, that our demands on players here are a little bit higher than most of the places in terms of how hard they need to work. The style thing's one thing. The possession, most guys can do that. It's the intensity that we require them to play at, the speed of play when they don't have the ball. So whether that's the counter pressing or the running back or the movement is what takes time for players to really get into. These are all talented players that can control and pass the ball. That's not the issue. Can Naby Keita go and counter press as well as Wijnaldum right now? Probably not. It takes time. That's why Wijnaldum gets picked over Naby Keita, because it's those off-the-ball demands that take longer to imprint in players, because those things are not demanded everywhere they go. It might be the first time they've had that demand placed on them. So that's the part that takes time. Players reaching the intensity level and the level of running that's required in this team is what takes time. And that they get it from training and videos, but the main way they get that is by playing, right? In these, and not just in friendlies, but in like real games where there's consequences, where they have to reach the required level. It's in those pressured moments is where they really learn it. And my job is very quickly really and the other hard thing, those are the things that are really hard to assess on video, right? When you get a video of a player, you can see that he can control, he can pass the ball, he's 6'2", but it's not until you get them close to you on the training field in games, you get to see those off the ball kind of habits.
Sure. That
to me are the most important things. So that's the part that takes the longest. And I've got to assess very quickly, particularly this season, if I believe I can get that player up to those demands or to those levels that we require. And that's the part that I think takes longest. I think that's why when you look at Liverpool, particularly the midfielders, right, the Fabinhos and Naby Keitas take longer to adjust to those midfield demands that Klopp puts on those players. And you could say, Salah and Mane, extremely talented players. It took them a year or two to really reach this current level they're at, right? And even Firmino, it's only now in year 3 or 4 that you're really starting to see that identity every single minute of every single game. And that's what we're trying to reach. It's not just an identity every game. It's every single second of the game. That identity needs to be on display. And that's what we're trying to reach. And that's the difficult part, particularly this season when you're limited on games.
Yeah, it was funny during, I think, one of the first games since the restart. We were watching in a Zoom. The group of us here, we were watching. I think it was probably the RGV game, the first game back, and I joked that it looked like you had Andrew Fox watching videos of Andrew Robertson, and
he was so good, wasn't he?
And
yeah, exactly.
Then we read the interview with Alexi about with Get French Football News, and it turns out that you have had him watching videos of Andrew Robertson.
Yep. Absolutely, we have really studied Liverpool, and I think we've figured out by reading articles that Klopp and Pep Linders say, the little clues they give in those articles, we really kind of like broke those down. And I think we've figured out some of the like secrets of Liverpool. So, the secrets of Liverpool is not their possession, right? It's their intensity. It's the way they get up the field quickly. It's the way they all run back together. It's the counter pressing. That's where the real that's where the winning formula lies for Liverpool. So, being able to give those examples to someone like Foxy, and then you see him go and do it, and getting forward and getting back and playing with intensity and carrying the ball forward, and it was great to see in that RGV game. I think particularly in the second half of that RGV game, I thought we were superb. Like, it was just attack after attack after attack. And it really kind of showed that, you know what we've been doing in the suspension, the time we spent together on Zoom calls, studying those things, having that opportunity to kind of pull back a little bit and really just work on and focus on team development as opposed to results, because there was no games. It allowed us to spend more time looking at those things. And I think in that RGV game, we saw some really good stuff. And I think against Colorado this past weekend, we saw some really good stuff that shows we're on the right track.
Yeah. It's absolutely been interesting to watch kind of the evolution, I guess, since last season. But with the integration and going back to that, obviously a few new faces in the side as well. Eder Borelli, Leandro Carrillo, and now Matt Boehner joining the team. How, with all that we talked about, how now do you go about integrating them into the setup?
Well, the first thing on those three is throughout. I mean, I knew Matt Boehner, obviously. I know what type of character I'm bringing in with Matt Boehner. Eder and Leandro are great guys. This wasn't. This was thought through as well. This wasn't a case of just adding guys from FC Juarez. This was, we want to do that. This relationship we have is so special and unique, and we're blessed to have it. But, in the conversation I had with Eder and Leandro via Zoom and things like that, like, the guys have great character, seriously, great human beings. And that was what really appealed to me the most. If we're going to add a player, we're adding a great human being first and foremost. And they really are top guys. So, unfortunately for them, just visas take time, right? They are international players, and I'm not sure that's completely clear to people. It's like when we sign a player through national, there's another couple of steps we need to go through, right, before they can, play. And then obviously in the year of a pandemic, visas can be a little bit slower. So we're working through that, but, they're great guys. And Matt Boehner as well. I think we need more depth in the back line. I think you saw that this past weekend. It's like Yuma playing the back again. Yuma's not a centre back. He does it. He's fantastic. But, I think the top teams have real good depth to squads, and that's something that it's tough to do as a year one franchise. Usually by year 3, year 4, you have that depth and the number that you want to get to. So we're constantly adding to that. And Matt was a guy that was available. I know what I'm adding in Matt in terms of the person I'm bringing in, the athlete I'm bringing in. And I know he's going to take a few weeks because he hasn't played for a while. But, once he gets up to the fitness levels and gets settled here in El Paso, he's going to be a great addition to the squad. And I, have that depth on the back line, so we're not having to play midfielders there or things like that. It's just going to be a great thing for me to have. So, 3 top guys are bringing in 3 really experienced players, which is always good. I think experience is good through a squad, all with different attributes, but they're all going to definitely contribute to our success over the next couple of years.
And Mikka, I think you had a question about Leandro specifically.
Yeah, Mark. obviously you had mentioned a little bit ago that the issue, I guess you could say, with Marios was just an issue of style and the way that this Locomotive team plays. How can you assure the fans that Carrillo has more of, I guess, technical quality, you could say, to him, or can maybe create chances for himself, or finish the ones that he does get? How does he fit tactically speaking?
Well, I mean, you always need a plan B, different options off the bench. And having Leandro also, gives you that option, which, he's scored, I think, 70 goals in 100 games. So he has this great goal scoring record. And he provides us with an opportunity to score goals in different ways. The goal we scored this past weekend, Chapper's goal, where Nick and Aaron are combined, that's like, for me, the perfect goal. Even last week at Phoenix, that combination of the goal. But we need to be able to score goals different ways as well. So Leandro, when he's available, is going to come in and be a big part of our attack to give us those different alternatives, those different options. Leandro's finishing in the air is some of the best I've seen, and obviously Aaron's not the biggest. Even though Aaron scores his fair share of headers, he's not the biggest guy. So to have those options, and I think that Leandro will already have this, we've seen it, but he'll have this familiarity with Aaron from their days in Juarez as well. So you've got this kind of familiarity that he's going to bring to be able to combine with his teammates. And he's a very smart player, obviously super experienced. He's got quality. And then I think we talk about style and systems and things, but at the end of the day, a number 9 needs to have a certain amount of quality in order to score goals. And he definitely has the quality needed to go and score a lot of goals in the USL and help us win a lot of points. And that's really going to be ultimately Leandro's job, right? To come and help us earn points, whether that's from the start or off the bench. And I'll say about everybody, whether you're coming off the bench for us, like Omar did this past weekend and create a goal like Aaron did a couple of times last season off the bench, or you're starting a game, your job is to help us win points. And Leandro's going to do that.
Well, now I just have to pick apart kind of what you said there. Are you thinking about Josue and Leandro as kind of like a big man, little man partnership, something a la, the World Cup winning France team?
It's an option, and I want these options. My preferred system at home is the 4-4-2 diamond, which means, 2 forwards. So it gives us that option, whether that's Said up there or Leandro up there or with Aaron. It gives us options, and it's important to have options. I mean, wasn't Liverpool's a classic case? Origi is a different forward to the 3 that play, right? Origi comes on and scores a lot of goals, but he's a different proposition for centre-backs. And you've got to have that, because you might pick a team for one game and after 50, 60 minutes, you realize it's not working. We've got to change it up, and to have different types of options on the bench, not similar guys, is massive for the group. So I think whether we're playing with one number 9 and maybe, a couple of wingers, Omar's capable of playing wide. He's capable of playing to the middle. Aaron's proven himself to be just an absolute goal scorer, as a forward, and having Leandro to have that option of a bigger guy in there to combine us with the little man, big man combination, which works, right? It works at every level. It's something that excites me, and it might give me a headache in terms of who to pick, but they're the headaches that top teams have, and we're trying to be a top team, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, and kind of thinking about building the squad, hopefully for a full season next year,
yep.
Do you have any concerns about kind of the average age of the squad? I think last time I checked, we were maybe 1 or 2 in terms of average age, around that 29 years old mark. What do you think about that?
No, I don't, because I think when you look at the squad, that might happen, but, Richie and Yuma might not always go on the field together. When we're playing 1-6, it's only one of them, and they're 2 of our older players, right? When they're on the field together, you get this experience through the middle that can help you control games, particularly towards, to manage games towards the end, and I kind of joke with the staff. I said, we're 4-0 up, right? If I was bringing on Yuma to play with Rich in that moment, or if I was bringing on Rich to play with Yuma, the game probably finishes 4-0. So it's like to have that experience to come on and manage games, whether it's from the start or as a sub in key moments, is critical. And I like having that in the squad. And we've got it at the back with Chiro, through the middle with Richie and Yuma, and then Leandro brings experience up top. You need guys like that at key moments of games, and it's important and I say this to all the guys, frankly, like, we're a squad here. You've seen me rotate these first 5-6 games. I want to get to the stage where we have a squad of players that I can rotate. So hopefully, even though some of them might be 34, 35, they don't need to play 34, 35 games a season. We've got to be a good enough squad to be able to give these guys a rest when they need it and then still win the game. So that's the level we're trying to get. So I'm not worried about the age of the squad. I think we have plenty of youth and energy. When you look at the Chappers, the Nicks, the Bryans, Brian and Nick might not be the youngest, but the energy they have on the field is like they run like they're 18 years of age. It's fantastic. You see Dylan, no matter running he gets through. I'm not worried about the age of the guys. I'm more worried about the profile of them and their attributes. And I think the guys we have on the older side, they bring these attributes that you're just not going to find around the league, or have the opportunity to bring that type of quality in, like to bring a Leandro in, with that quality and experience. There's not many teams in the league that have that. To have both Richie and Yuma, right? There's not many teams that have that. And to have a centre back, the quality and the experience, the leadership that Chiro brings, there's not many teams that have that either. So I think we're blessed to have them, and I see it as a positive for the squad. And I know it's definitely helped some of the younger players as well, like Chapper, to have those guys to look up to and learn from. It's going to help bring those on too.
Well, Mark, the restart has obviously been a little bit hectic, a little bit, obviously you're managing a lot of things, managing a lot of different players' fitness levels and all of that throughout kind of a crazy setup. But couple of weeks ago, you guys go to Phoenix, and at the time of watching the game, obviously, I think all of us as supporters, a 3-1 loss to Phoenix, hurts as a fan, certainly.
Yep.
I went back and I finally went back and watched the match, kind of devoid of the emotion of the result.
Yep.
And looked at the numbers as well for XG, and I don't know how much you get into that.
The XGs are good. Yeah, the XGs are good for that game. We should have won 3-1 based on the XG.
Yeah, and that's including the penalty. Like Phoenix's XG, I guess, was in open play was 0.32.
Yep.
And ours was 2.8. So, I mean, how do you manage, I guess, and how do you handle when you're happy with a performance, but the result is just like by its very nature disappointing to the fans? How do you handle something like that?
It's a good question, and I think I'm pretty good at doing that. And even in just life in general, making decisions, I try not to let emotion or my own pride get in the way. So whenever you lose, your pride's hurt. That's just natural, right? You're hurt. Inside, there's this like thing inside you that's just hurting, right? That can never be like the driving force in your external appearance or your communication or the message that you convey. That can't be at the center of it. It has to come from a completely objective position as a coach. I think these are fans, get emotional, get subjective, even players, they need that emotion, almost the players do, to perform. As a coach, I think we have to keep it completely objective, completely unemotional. So I was so happy after that Phoenix game, even though we lost 3-1, because we set the guys an objective going into the game. We know that we can dominate in terms of a performance and a stats thing and just a control of the game, which usually ends up in a positive result. We know that we can dominate most games we play. Our style, our identity can dominate and control the game. Can we do it against Phoenix? Because that's the real kind of, indicator on where you are as a team in that moment, but also in the progression. Like, can you go to Phoenix? And it was 116 degrees, by the way, so hot. And I know it's hot in El Paso, but that was really hot in Phoenix. Can we go into Phoenix and assert our style on them and win that game? And when I say that game, there's usually two games that are played. There's our identity versus their identity, and then there's the scoreboard game. So there's always two games going on. You want to win both, obviously. You want to win on the scoreboard, but you also want to win the identity game where our identity overcomes and defeats your identity. And then obviously, hopefully that translates on the scoreboard. So you play two games. Every 90 minutes, there's two games happening. And you can never guarantee the scoreboard one. The scoreboard thing's almost out of your control somewhat because there are a lot of factors that can go into a referee decision, a penalty kick, all those things. Can we win the style game or the identity game? Can we assert ourselves on them like we've never done before? And we did. So when I set that objective for the team and they go and prevail in that and they go and do that, I can't be upset with that. I have to applaud that and be positive about that because they did everything that we asked. Now, unfortunately, it didn't translate on the scoreboard. We had 23 shots. They had 7, right? It's like Asante had 1 shot. He scored 1 goal. It's like, my gosh, if you'd have told me before the game, you're going to restrict Asante to 1 shot, I'll take that every day. So the guys did everything they could. They did everything right, but we came out losing 3-1. That hurts. Losing hurts. You want to win, but the way they performed and the psychological boost that gives you, whether it's, next season when you go to Phoenix. Well, guys, we were here last year. Remember how we played? That's a massive boost. And it just shows, it tells me we've grown from last season. It tells me we're going the right direction. As a coach, that's all I ask for.
Is there something just absolutely infuriating about playing Phoenix, though, where they can be completely outplayed and still score 3 goals?
They're a good team, man, and they do have a style. They do have an identity, and I applaud Rick for that. And I've had people text me after the game saying that was the best USL game I've ever seen because there was 2 teams with an identity trying to, overcome the other one, right? And they've got great players, throughout their team. And I think the thing that doesn't get mentioned enough with Phoenix is, you see Asante Flemings and they're 11 and like, wow, that's a great midfield, strong back 4, like their depth is incredible. They've really put together a squad there when you're like, Santi Moore wasn't on the bench that game. He was suspended, obviously, but he wasn't on the bench, but they were still able to bring on Jack Barmby, Aguinaga. Those 2, Farrell came on to shore up the back line. Farrell started every game last season. He's one of the best centre-backs in the league, probably. So the depth of the players they've accumulated over the years and the quality of their squad is fantastic. And that's that to me is what's impressive about Phoenix. It's, Asante is an impressive player, but the depth that they have, the variation in midfield they have to put out there, and they got Schweitzer from Colorado, who's another very good midfielder. So you look at their midfield and you're like, they're like 3 deep of like high quality players in each position. And, so that's what's impressive about Phoenix. And they do have a style and they're very effective with their style. The players they have, they're able to execute on that style with the Asante and Flemings and a target 9 who those guys can run off and midfielders that are able to find the passes for those players. I applaud them, and I love going there, and I love playing against Rick, and I love playing against Phoenix because to me it's the ultimate test. I mean, they romped the whole league last year. They have to be considered the best team. They're the team you want to beat. So for us to go and do what we did, I thought was pretty impressive on the guys' part, and it made me happy. And I knew that after that performance that we were going to have a game like Colorado where we're going to be scoring 4 or 5 goals because you don't create that many chances and eventually they start going in, right? They just start going in. And I believe we're a team now capable of scoring a lot more than we scored last season and scoring, 3, 4, 5, 6 goals a game.
Well, I guess, we'll use that to lead right into the discussion about the Colorado Springs game. I mean, first things first, I guess the first goal is probably the most important in terms of just getting things off on the right foot. We haven't seen a goal direct from a free kick, and as Dylan Mars curled that one in, I just had to think back to our discussion in preseason back when I was in El Paso, and you talked about about the quality of Dylan Maris and just like how good he is. I think these last few games since the restart, everybody has now seen his quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Dylan just needed games. Once again, even though he was in Miami last year, they were at a lower level. He was stuck there. So even though he had games, he didn't have the quality of opposition or that kind of pressure environment that brings out the best in people. So I knew that it would take Dylan a few games, right? But now you're starting to see a guy that's capable of creating chances for others, scoring his own goals, different ranges, different types of goals, works extra. Some of his numbers that he pulls in terms of mileage on games are some of the highest in the team. So when, I want to look at Liverpool again, right? When you're number 10, your Firmino or your Dylan Mahrez are your hardest workers, that is a winning formula. When your most creative player is also your hardest worker, that's a great position to be in as a team and as a coach. And Dylan, you see what things he creates. And he's actually, before this weekend, he was actually top of the chances created list in the USL. He had 17 chances created, whereas Santi was on 17 as well. So he's doing those things for others, but he's also putting an incredible shift for the team defensively, whether that's running back or pressing. And we're starting to see what Dylan's all about. He's got that ability to score from distance, from free kicks, from open play, left foot, right foot. He's only going to get better as well. He's here for a long time. I'm excited to have him because I believe we have a guy that completely fits our team identity. Yeah, of quality, but also hard work.
And the way he fits into the system is something that we've noticed as well. For one of our Patreon subscribers, Jay Konecki, asked a question basically for those who are less tactically familiar with the game. Could you just talk about? You said you prefer earlier tonight. You said you prefer the diamond at home. I think we've all seen that. But could you talk for those maybe not as well versed in the tactical side, kind of why you prefer that formation and what it offers the team?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to us assessing last season. One of our main objectives this year was to score more goals. We proved last season that we can be the best possession team in the league and one of the best defensive teams in the league. Our record states that. That was year one. How do we build on that? Well, okay, now we need to become more of an attacking threat as a team, and that's creating more chances and scoring more goals, right? So the diamond gives you more people higher up the field. Obviously, you've got 2 number 9s and 1 number 10 pretty close together at the top of the diamond. So naturally, when we get the ball into the box, we're going to have more people arriving in the box. So that was kind of a basic thought that went into it, but it also overloads the middle of the field. And so when you've got 4 guys in a diamond, they can be kind of centralized, and you've got 2 number 9s that can work. You've now got 6 players to the middle of the field that give you this spine, this strength that enables you to keep the ball because you've got the overload in there, and also enables you to counter press through the middle initially, to stop counterattacks, to win the ball back quickly. So it really fits into our philosophy as a team. And obviously it gives, in that overload, in that almost, it can be a distraction at times with the teams because other teams will now start to come inside. Then we can free up our fullbacks, which has been Foxy and Brahim, in those wide areas where they have the space now because our diamonds attracted all of their players, all of their defenders, inside a little bit more, and then we can free the guys on the wing. So the diamond gives you this kind of this monster that, with different heads, right? You can attack through the middle. You can get it wide with the wing backs or the full backs. You can combine through the middle. You can arrive and attack the ball in the box with more numbers. So, and you've probably seen in some of the goals we've scored, like the RGV goal, right? With Dylan's goal, where it's from maybe, I can't remember who played it in. Drew played it in. It was Aaron, Marius, Dylan, bang, bang, bang. And then you get the Phoenix goal where it's into Nick, set to Dylan, through to Aaron. So you've got these 3-4 players that are constantly combining through the middle and to create those goal-scoring chances while also being able to stop counterattacks. Because in this league, you saw against Phoenix, right? Most goals are scored from counterattacks in open play. They're either set pieces or counterattacks. If you can stop the other team from being able to counterattack, which is usually through the middle, you got to lock down the middle of the field almost and make them go around you the long way, send them the long way to your goal. If you could accomplish that, then you can be a team that scores goals and also a team that stops goals. So for me, it was the evolution of the team to kind of get to where we want to be as not losing our defensive identity, but also now being able to add goals and more shots to what we did last season. And that's where Dylan fits in as the 10, kind of at the top of the diamond. He's a guy that you can play through. You can give him the ball under pressure because invariably there's going to be defenders in there, and he's able to deal with it and create things from those moments. He's good in tight spaces, and he can create for others. His through balls to the forwards are superb. So he really fits into our idea really well.
I appreciate the talk. And one thing that I think we've talked about the last couple of matches is Dylan out of possession, becoming the, as you said, related to Roberto Firmino, pressing as the central presser, with the forwards pressing either side of him. Is that something that you guys have done kind of, I mean, obviously you've done it consciously, but how did that kind of, start in terms of Dylan being the key for the press?
Well, it's finding a number 10 that can do that for a start. Because like I said earlier, not all number 10s want to do the defensive work. They're usually very creative players. But, the defensive side of it, they're not always too keen on. Where I know Dylan he's got that quality, but also kind of a blue collar attitude where he gets to work, right? Like he'll run and he's incredibly fit. So he can do all those things. And then just the nines, trying to figure out a way to protect the outsides of the field, because with the diamonds you can get a lot of players can be through the middle part of the field, and that does allow teams when they have possession to kind of get you on the flanks a little bit, particularly with quick switches. So, you've got to use the 9 to kind of protect the weak side, if you will. If that makes sense.
Sure.
So while the ball's on their right, we'll press, with Dylan on our left-sided 9 and our 8 and, our fullback over there. But if they get a quick switch, it's a diamond, it can cause problems. So the kind of the weak side 9, we use that guy to kind of protect that out the other side of the field so a quick switch can't hurt us. So it just means the 9s, it's actually an easier job for the 9s. They're just really going to protect their side of the field and kind of lock down, not allow the other team to attack down the sides, frankly. And then that gives Dylan, who's the 10, and you saw this weekend, we had 2 guys of the 8s who I love in there, Nick and Chapper, with that pressing ability to go and join Dylan as a second layer of pressure. And that's the key to it. It's like your 8s need to be linked with the 10. So when Dylan goes, our 8s need to have the ability to go with him as a press. And Nick's so good at that. And you saw Chapper's intensity, the way he gets out and presses, so good at that. So we're finding the right guys to fit into these spots. It takes time, like I said earlier, like as I'm learning more about the diamond, because that's football, right? As we as a coach-player system, we actually learn more about it. And like every game, we're like, oh man, I didn't think of that. So it's like that's put that one in the book for next week of training, right? So so as we're learning, we're like, wow, these guys kind of really fit the profiles of what you need in this position. So, I thought we had a good balance in there this weekend against Colorado with Dylan as the 8 and Chapper and Nick as the 10. The intensity they gave, the counter press and the forward pressure, the forward runs they gave us, was great. And obviously at home, you can afford to do that a little bit more, right? You can be more on the front foot, so you can put guys in there that are naturally more front-footed players. So Dylan allows us to do that. And I think we've worked out with the 9s, their strengths, defensively, that they can really protect the outside a little bit more and let those energetic players, those dynamic players like Chap and Nick and Dylan through the middle to go and really apply the pressure on whether it's the centre backs or the 6s of the other team.
Absolutely. Austin, I know you had a question about the El Paso boys out there.
Yeah, now that you're bringing up Chapa, Mark, I just wanted to ask here with, we got to see Chapa, Memo, and Omar on the field for the first time together, and seeing how well that connection worked out. Or just wondering, was there something that you saw going into this match that you could see all 3 of them on the field? Or at what point during the week did you know that this was going to happen, and how did the boys react to it?
Well, usually I've got, and I don't think all coaches do this. It's something that I do, and I don't know why I do it yet, but it's what I do. I usually have like the next 2 or 3 lineups in my head tentatively planned out. So even before the Phoenix game, in my head, Chap was going to play against Colorado. He did really well against RGV when he started. He came out the lineup. We tried to come with other guys in there. So in my head, because I played against RGV, he was always due to come back in, right? So in my head, I kind of pinpointed this game for Chapa to come back in and get some more minutes and do what he does best. I think, Brian's injury, has obviously opened the door for Memo. So that was an easy one. Memo deserved his chance. He trains well. Drew got the opportunity to play there against Phoenix. Let's give Memo a run out. We're at home. It'll be an easier environment for him to that's only his second professional start for Memo. So he's still a very inexperienced player. So, and this was sometimes hard for players to understand. Like, in regards to Memo, it's important that I find the right moments for him to play. I don't want to put him into a situation where he might fail, for example. I wanted to put him in a situation where I know he's going to be successful because his confidence grows and he becomes a better player for it. So, I think, Pulisic at Chelsea was a great one. Lampard didn't play much at first. And people are like, why isn't he playing? But now look at Pulisic before he got this injury. He was flying, right? It's just like with young players, you've got to find the right times. I think Pep's done a great job with Foden. Like now Foden's able to go and start in a Champions League game but it's because of what Pep's done with him the last 18 months, slowly drip feeding him the information, time on the field, finding him moments for him to go in and be successful. So for me with Memo is I'll find the right time for you, right? Just trust the process, keep doing what you're doing. And I felt this game was the right time for Memo to go in. And he did great. He did absolutely great. And so did Chapa. And they've obviously got a connection down that side of the field. So I thought it was important for me to put them on the same side of the field. They vibe off each other really well. They're pretty close off the field. So that was important as well. They've each got each other there, going through the game together. And Omar off the bench is always a fantastic threat. That was always the plan, So like I said, I've always got like an idea of my next 2-3 lineups in my mind. And I think the Memo one was obviously Brian, but Chapa and Omar coming off the bench was kind of always a plan for this game because I think I needed to get Said back in. Said had a good 45 minutes against New Mexico. I just had to bring him off at half time because I had to just change a couple of things. It was a tactical thing. It wasn't necessarily Said. So Said was also due more minutes and Said needs more minutes to start to understand how we play and what we need of him. So I got to find different times to get all these guys these minutes that they A, deserve and B, need so we can get them up to the level we want them to be at. And so it was another good game for Said. And also for Said, maybe the coach, I thought it was important for Said to play against his old club. Like, I think there's something in that as well, right? No, I do. I think that's important. Like, it was his birthday. It was against his old club. He deserves it because he tries to say, after you go on site. You deserve this run out. It's a great occasion, a great day for you. Go and play. So I think about all those things. And like I said, usually I've got an idea of our next 2-3 lineups in my head, before that game actually rolls around. I don't think everyone does that. It's just what I do because I like to reward players for their work they do in training and their attitude on a day-to-day basis. So it's up to me if the likes of the Memos, the Said, those guys are showing that attitude day in and day out, that selflessness day in and day out, then I have to reward them. And the way you reward players is getting them time on the field. It might not be exactly when they want it to be, but I've got to do my best to find them time at some point where they can go out there and express themselves and enjoy their football and learn and get better and start to feel really part of this team.
That's I always love when seeing players run out against their old clubs and kind of the extra edge that can carry just in terms of trying to prove. But Said, I know we discussed it at the time, but it seemed like Said also benefited quite a bit from playing. He played in the 10 against New Mexico, trying to fit into that role where we've seen Dylan. He had a little bit, obviously he's playing as a forward in this game, had a little bit of a freer role. Did that maybe emphasize his strengths a little bit more, get him in a little more space and maybe out of that kind of crowded midfield area where he's able to kind of express himself a little bit more, as you said?
That's a really good question, Phil, because Said doesn't even know what his best position is yet. It sounds so like we're trying to figure out together. I know he has the quality and he checks the box. What I said earlier, he can do the things I want him to do off the ball, right? He has that natural intensity about his game. It's finding where Said fits in. And Said, for me, has been one of the most misunderstood footballers for years now. He's been thrown wide as a winger. And he'll tell you firsthand he's not a winger, but for some reason that's where he's found most of his playing time. When he was at North Carolina, they threw him wide. When he was at Colorado Switchbacks initially, they threw him wide. And then last season, they started to bring him through the middle a little bit. And we saw a little, and that's what really attracted me to Saeed, what I saw him do when he came and played us last season, that 10 role for Colorado. That's what kind of pushed me over the edge to go and pursue Saeed a little bit. He was always a guy on my radar, but we didn't know what he was, right? And Saeed doesn't really know what he is. I think he's got attributes to play as an 8, like a Naby Keita type 8. He's got attributes to be as a 10. He's got attributes to be as a 9. It's like, what is he? So the only way we're going to, but in training, we've played him in all sorts of positions, trying to find where he fits in, because I know he has the ability, but it's my job, and along with Saeed, to kind of work together and find out where he's most comfortable in this system. So, yeah, against New Mexico, you saw him as a 10, because I know he's played there before. He was more of a 9. This past weekend against Colorado, he did well. So, Marius leaving has opened up a kind of a spot there, I guess, where we can give somebody a few minutes to see if it works. So we're working together, me and Saeed, to find out what's best. I just know he's a great guy. He's got a great work ethic. He's got great quality. And it's my responsibility as a coach to get the best out of Saeed and find the best position for him, because I believe he's like 29 years of age and he's nowhere near his potential, because he's being misused his whole career. And I don't think that's fair on a player. I think a player needs to be put in a position where they can be successful and find out who they really are and what they're really capable of. And I love Saeed to death. He's one of the most popular guys in the locker room. So I owe it to him to really try and figure that out with him. And it'll be a challenge. It'll be, some ups and downs. It won't be a straight line path. It'll be a bendy road, but we'll get there eventually. And I think when we do, we'll have a great player on our hands. And I believe in him.
This performance, kind of across the board, obviously with Dylan grabbing a goal, and then with Chapa scoring a brace, Nick Ross obviously involved in the buildup. Not to take anything away from Gomez in his goal, obviously creating one himself, for himself, and then the back heel on Chapa's first, but. This performance just kind of had the midfield's fingerprints, I guess, all over it in a lot of ways. Yep. And it seemed like Nick Ross in particular was playing in sort of a freer role than normal. Was it something that switchbacks afforded you the opportunity to be able to play Nick a little, to let him loose a little bit, or was that something that came just kind of naturally as the game progressed?
I think it wasn't planned. It wasn't spoke about. Nick just played on the left of the diamond like he usually does. Him and Foxy have a great kind of relationship down that side of the field. They work off each other really well. I think it was more of a byproduct of, they played with like a 3-4-3 or a 5-4-1. I think when they were defending, it was more like a 5-4-1 Colorado. So their right wing back was able to kind of like block Fox's outside lane, if that makes sense. Foxy wasn't able to kind of venture as far forward as he usually does, which probably allowed Nick to have more of the attacking role in that relationship in this game. There'll be other games when Foxy has more of the attacking responsibility. I just think the way this game played out, it just gave Nick, with Foxy obviously staying back a little bit more because he didn't have that outside lane to constantly run into. It allowed Nick to go and get further forward. And that's the beautiful thing about the diamond. If you want to stop us centrally, that's fine. We'll send Foxy and whether it's Brian or Memo out there, we'll send those guys forward. If you want to block those outside guys, we've got the guys through the middle that can do. That's why the diamond's so good. It's like, it's so hard to play against. And I use it because every time I played against it, it's been a nightmare as a coach to play against. So at some point I was like, you know what? Why don't I just play this thing? Because it's like, it's such a nightmare. If you get it right as a team, it's such a nightmare to play against. And that's, Dylan and Richie had so much success in Miami with it. And every time I played Miami, it's like, I played 4 different formations every time we played Miami. We lost every game. I'm like, my God, I can't, it's this diamond. It's like, okay, we'll stop the fullbacks this game, and then Dylan gets it through the middle and scores. Okay, you stop them through the middle, and the fullbacks go forwards. It's like, drive me crazy. So I'm like, at some point, I'm just going to start playing. I need to learn the diamond. I need to study it, because we got to start playing it because it is a nightmare to play against. And I think Colorado probably found that. Colorado picked a formation. Credit to them. They picked a formation they haven't played yet. And I think it was one that stopped the likes of Foxy getting forward. And they somewhat achieved that. You know, Fox didn't have his greatest attacking game, right? He wasn't like just the RGV where just gallivanting forward and putting cross in the box. But that enabled Nick and Chapa and Dylan, the central guys, to go and create things through there. So I think that was more of a byproduct of how the game played out. It wasn't what we planned on. It's just the beauty of the diamond, I guess.
The Chapa's first, I think, has now been pointed out. I know, you know, the video has kind of made the rounds. Jeff Reuter specifically, like, pointing out just how good a goal it is. Is that goal kind of, I mean, I think we joked about it while we were watching the game, but we were basically saying, like, this must be the type of goal that Mark dreams about when he, you know, thinks about the type of goal he wants this team to score.
Absolutely. And I think the guys have been so good at kind of our new training methods this year. What we're trying to, like, the Phoenix goal was the perfect goal for me as well. The RGV goal was the perfect goal. Those quick passes around the edge of the box to penetrate, you know, this one with Nick and Aaron, that quick combination, and Chapa's kind of putting it in from 5 yards. And, like, they're the goals that we're trying to score this season. Obviously, you know, if we can get it wide and cross it in, great. But if we can start scoring goals like that and from wide areas, then it makes us a really dangerous team to play against. So, I mean, I've been so lucky this year with what the guys have done. They've already scored 2, 3, 4 goals this year that I'm like, there's no way we scored that last season. That's a goal that we just don't score last season. It just shows the guys it's working what we're doing, and they're buying into it, and they have the ability and the selflessness to execute it, because a lot of these goals require working with a teammate. If you look, right, giving the ball to somebody else, he gives it back to you, those quick combinations, and that's not easy, and not all players can do that. But I think you see the guys this year, they're really doing it, and they're scoring some unbelievable goals. And I'm going into games now excited, like what type of goal we're going to score today, right? That's such a cool feeling to have, right? When you always feel like there's something around the corner, right? They're going to do something that's just going to get you off your seat. And it's the goal like against Phoenix, you know, with it up, back and through. And then this weekend when Nick drives in the box, and it's that little give and go with Aaron. And it's like, man, that's exciting. I love that. And that got me off my seat. I was like, what a goal. and I think the fans appreciate that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I know everyone here appreciated it for sure. And I think we were all a little surprised that it was Chapa on the end of it, because obviously, you know, he doesn't pop up in the box all that often. Was it surprising, or is that something that you've seen, you know, in training from Chapa?
Look, I mean, they have a license to get in the box. Is one of our things this season. Let's get more people into the box, you know, whether it's, you know, the 9s, the 8s, the 10s, you know, a fullback arriving on the far side. They have the license to get into the box this season. We've worked on that. We've given that. So I want to see my 8s arriving on the end of things. Invariably, usually 8s arrive in the box unmarked because they're coming from a little bit deeper, a little bit later. So it's a very dangerous thing. So no, I wasn't surprised. I was more surprised in the second one. If you watch the second one back, he's ran 100 yards to catch up with Omar. That's the surprise one. Like, where did he come from? So no, but I love seeing them in the box, and it's definitely a focus of our game this year is getting more people in those areas to score more goals.
I know that'll make Mikka happy for sure. That was my war cry all through preseason. Is I want more late runs, more of those Aaron Ramsey type goals.
Yep, there you go.
Mark, obviously, a couple of goals at the end for Colorado Springs. I mean, does that sour an otherwise really great performance for you, or does that kind of give you something to talk about? Was it just a factor of their fatigue in this kind of weird season? Talk us through kind of how the team's feeling, because I'm sure Logan's not too pleased that he's conceded there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't pleased in the locker room at the end of the game. The players and the staff were not happy, and I think that shows the level that we're trying to achieve here. You know, we're never happy conceding goals, and we're never happy giving the opposition a moment of success. It's just We want to be a team that dominates from start to finish. And that might be not being able to do that yet might be just a byproduct of just, into a rhythm of games, not having that prep time in preseason, all that stuff. But credit to Colorado. I mean, at 4-0, they somehow found some life. And usually 4-0 is enough, right? Usually 4 is enough where the other team just wants to leave now and go home. But they found some life and they kept coming. And, we may be naturally as human beings, take your foot off the gas at 4-0. You think it's enough. Something that we need to address. And it's a blessing in the end because I think we spoke today. It was 4-1 and Dylan had that chance at the goal he saved. It would have made it 5-1. Right. And if we'd have made it 5-1 and come off, we may have forgot about the previous 10 minutes, right? And overlooked that because the scoreline now adequately reflects what the game actually looked like, right? For me, it was a 4-5-6-1 game, not a 4-2 game. They had the last 10 minutes where they really came at us and could have scored another one. So Dylan not scoring that and them actually going and getting a second actually, I think is a blessing because it allows us to focus on the end of the game and those last 15 minutes, what actually happened, dissect it a little bit, ask some questions and ultimately become better for it. We're happy we scored some goals because we've been kind of threatening that with our amount of shots and our amount of control we're having in games. But to concede to on the other end is disappointing because we are a team that last season didn't concede many goals. So we want to kind of, now we're scoring, let's still make sure that we're able to kind of keep the clean sheet at the other end. So it's something for us to look at.
Mark, before we let you go, just briefly, I know you spoke after the match, briefly looking ahead to Real Monarchs, and how difficult is it game planning for a team that is just so different from the Monarchs that we faced, at the tail end of last season, Western Conference Final? Like, it feels like the revenge factor that might be there against, any other club almost kind of evaporates in this case.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a good point. It makes me, it made me laugh where I think there's only Jack Blake and maybe Noah Powder that are playing that was in the team last year, right? They've only got a couple of guys, whether that's because the MLS, the first team's taking a bunch of players in the bubble, but, I like to be realistic as a coach. If that's the team they put out, we're not playing against the defending champions. We're playing against Real Monarchs, right? But we're not playing against the defending champions. So I've seen a lot of people that be the defending champions. It's a whole different team. Like it's hard to say that. So we want to go there and win and be successful. But we know, like you said, it might have taken the edge off it a little bit because it is a completely different team, and that's the nature of being an MLS2 team, I guess. You from year to year, things happen with the first team. You never know what type of players you're going to get. But also, we don't know what we're going to go into. We might be going to the same type of Monarchs team that's played the last few games, a younger team. But we also might go into a team that now has 5-6 first team guys in there because, the first team's back in market now after the tournament they've just had. So it makes it difficult to prepare because you're not quite sure what team they're going to put on the field. We know that regardless of that, though, Salt Lake's a hard place to go. With the altitude and those things, no matter what team they put out there, it's going to be a difficult game. They do still have a couple of quality players like Jack Blake is always a worry for me because I know what he's capable of. I've worked with him before and I know how good he is and how dangerous he can be from distance or on free kicks, those type of things. So there's threats there we need to be wary of. But we've got to go there and try and look for another 3 points to kind of get a little bit of a run, continue our level of performance. And we think it's a good opportunity to do that because, like I said, it could be a very different Monarchs team than we played last year. But then again, it might not be. So it's hard to really look at it. It's hard to really, prepare for it too much. So we really spend most of our time focusing on ourselves and getting our own, tactics right and our own preparation right, as opposed to worrying too much about who they're going to have on the field.
Well, Mark, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I know it's been just absolutely a wild year, and I know we're just happy to have some sport to enjoy at this point. So best of luck to you and the boys up in Utah this weekend. And again, thanks so much for talking to us.
Appreciate it, guys. Stay safe. Thank you for your support. Appreciate everything you guys do.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, as I said at the beginning, I hope everyone enjoyed that episode. As I mentioned, we are brought to you by Roughneck Scarves and Icarus FC, two companies that I really have enjoyed working with in the past. Roughneck is the official scarf supplier to MLS, USL, and US Soccer, and Seriously Loco. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. As for Icarus FC, I've personally worked with them in the past, but they design a ton of lower league kits in the U.S., as well as some amazing concept kits. If kits are your thing, then Icarus certainly is too. If you're tired of the same old uniforms and cookie cutter templates from Nike and Adidas, if you're looking for a unique, completely custom kit for your youth club, Sunday league squad, adult, or even pro team, Icarus FC can help you create the kit of your dreams at an affordable price. Let them help you design your new custom kit today at IcarusFC.com. Again, thank you guys for checking out the show, and be sure to subscribe so you get all of the new episodes right when they post. And we will see you next time. Until then, stay loco.